Good evening and welcome to Macquarie's Postgraduate Careers in Focus. I'm Connor and I'm a student at Macquarie University, and today we'll focus on how credentials and short courses can open up different career opportunities. Before we start, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the Macquarie University land, the Wallamatical people of the Darug Nation, whose cultures and customs have nurtured and continue to nurture this land since the dreaming. We pay our respects to elders both past and present, and I'd like to extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. As we do allow some time for our attendees to join us online, please note that this session is being recorded and will be shared with you after the event. If you do have any questions throughout this session, please put them in the question and answer box below. We'll answer them during a live question and answer segment later on. Now, we have such an insightful session planned for you. Tonight, we have Lindsay Bryan, Associate Dean of Curriculum and Learning at Macquarie Business School. Lindsay has worked in banking and finance markets for more than 20 years at several banks in roles covering business and corporate banking, financial markets, sales and learning and development, and compliance and risk management. He's also used his experience in financial markets and banking to assist companies and financial services firms to manage regulatory, financial markets, and conduct requirements. In August 2018, he joined us at Macquarie University as Director of Applied Finance Centre. And since September 2022, he has been our Associate Dean, Curriculum and Learning Postgraduate, managing the postgraduate courses for the Macquarie Business School. Since 2010, Lindsay has been actively involved in the development of Australia's G20 OTC derivatives regulation, the FX Global Code and Benchmark Reform, and eyeball fallbacks. He is the current chair of the Australian Corporate Treasury Association Technical Committee. Welcome, Lindsay. An awesome background for you, so it's an honour to have you tonight. So let's just begin. What are the credentials program?
Yeah, it's a good place to start because these programs were designed very much with our industry partners in mind. So just to step back a little bit, there's three acronyms we've just thrown at everyone in this invite. One of which you've just explained, which is ACTA, which is the Australian Corporate Treasury Association, and then AFMA is the Australian Financial Markets Association. And then CANS is Chartered Accountants ANZ, and in particular, the business valuation side. So taking each of them in turn, ACTA represents corporate treasury and treasury financial management throughout Australia. And it is an association with quite a few members and a lot of interest from various parties to be involved in that industry. In the case of AFMA, it is an industry association which for many years has been a policy house, which has really sort of pushed a lot of the positions that I've been involved in. So all those OTC derivative obligations, a lot of that was done with AFMA. And so I've had a lot of contact with them over the years, and they are really there to represent all of the participants in the financial markets. And then Chartered Accountants ANZ, Chartered Accountants, and they also have this side which is involved in business valuation, which is a highly regulated there's clear specifications for how those valuations should happen. So those three organizations have really been working with us to create a credential that helps their people show that they have the qualifications required to take part in those markets. So in the case of the treasurers, that they are qualified to be a treasurer of a company. In the case of the AFMA, it's to assure that those people are able to operate in financial markets, and there is a regulatory aspect to that as well. And in the case of CANS and the business valuation qualification, it is to enable their people to be able to say that they are business valuation specialists. And in common with a lot of these things, you really have to be a member of that organization to get full benefit of the credential. But at the same time, we're providing an education in the particular markets. So there is actually a benefit to doing these courses, even if you're not a member.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Lindsay. And I'm assuming all those acronyms kind of get easier the more involved
They
you
just
are in
roll
it.
off the tongue.
So then why does Macquarie kind of offer these programs? What's the benefit for people doing these courses?
So one of the things that we do at Macquarie is we're very close to industry and we work very closely with industry. And so we do ask a lot of our industry partners in helping our students in our degrees to learn about the industry that they might want to go into, to have internships, scholarships, etc. So this is a way for us to help those partners out. In the case of ACTA, they wanted to have a certification that they could call that could make people a certified treasury professional. To do that, they really felt there needed to be some education, and it's an area that we have always been involved in. You mentioned previously that I started out in the Applied Finance Centre. The Master of Applied Finance has always covered treasury matters, and so it was very nicely a nice fit for us to be involved in developing that program. And so what that does is it enables people who don't necessarily study a degree with us to then gain the skills and knowledge they need to be able to operate in that industry. In the case of AFMA used to run these programs themselves. They used to have an education arm that provided the education that their accredited dealers would need. Now, the way it works is that someone does the course with us. It's called the Financial Market Certificate. Once they have done that certificate and they work for an AFMA firm, they can apply to be AFMA accredited. And that is, if you like, the ticket you need to be able to operate in financial markets in Australia. And that's across foreign exchange, debt products, and energy as well, which is quite a common one.
So you've talked. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, chartered accountants, another regulated area. You have to be accredited to. You have to have a certification or a credential to be able to call yourself a business valuation specialist. There is regulation of that, and this is one of the ways that chartered accountants, Australia and New Zealand, enable you to get that qualification. If you're experienced, you've been involved in it, you can do this course, and you can actually convert yourself to being a business valuation specialist. And I'm sorry to cut you off there, Connor.
No, all good. You're talking a lot about kind of getting accredited and kind of going down that path. And that's just one of the benefits that students can have from this course. What other benefits are there for students that wish to do these?
Well, I think the other thing is it's a great opportunity to learn more about those particular markets. So even if the credential is not the thing that you're after at this stage, it's a great way to learn about the markets. We have something in the AFMA suite called the Foundations of Financial Markets. It's a very quick course. It gives you that sort of background and what happens in financial markets and what are the typical products and the transactions that occur. It's an easy way for someone to get that taste of markets and give them that entree into potentially working in that degree. In that industry. And equally, some people use this as a way to show that they have an interest in that particular industry, and they may do it just to be ready to be employed. So there's a mix of people who are doing it for their own purposes, and also people who are doing it through their employer because they want to work in financial markets. And similarly for ACTA, it's the same thing. The Certificate in Corporate Treasury is really there to help people to understand what happens in Treasury. And you don't have to be a member of ACTA to do it. It is certainly a benefit to do that, and it helps you to gain credentials there. And some people may do this course and actually decide to join the association later, and then they get the benefit of that credential.
Yeah. Okay. And so a lot of people that might be in the workforce now understand that there's huge challenges. It's constantly evolving, and you need to be up to date and kind of relevant. So how do these credentials basically equip someone to address these challenges and also develop that professional growth?
I think one of the biggest things is that to be involved in these areas, you have to have a base level of understanding, and you have to be able to understand what is going on in those markets. So does it necessarily tell you everything you need to stay up to date all the time? No, these are point in time courses. You do the course, you move on into the industry, or you may need to brush up. But what you do have then is that base level of knowledge to know what it is you're looking for, what sort of information you might need to be able to keep up to date, and to be ready to keep your eye open to what is going on in markets, what is going on in the case of corporate treasury, what is happening with corporates, what are they doing, where are they raising money, what transactions are they doing, and it helps you to understand a little bit more about what is going on in markets in general. In the case of the Chartered Accountants course, it's really necessary for you to have that base level knowledge. It is a highly technical area in business valuation, and it's an area where you must have that base level and be able to continuously develop your skills as you go through your career.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lindsay. Now we're going to kind of get to the point where we're opening up the floor to any questions that any of our participants may have. You can scan the QR code now to view more about the credentials program offered through the Macquarie Business School. Now, if we are unable to address your question tonight or even after this webinar, if you think of an additional question, please book a one-on-one consultation with our team through the QR code, and would be more than happy to help provide personalized guidance and support as you consider your next steps. Now, if you are wanting more information about Chartered Accountant Australia and New Zealand, please visit their website for more details. So now we're going to kind of move to the live question and answer section. And Lindsay, we've got a few questions coming in.
Cool.
Basically, like, first off, what does studying a credential look like? You know, it's not as big as a potential full degree, or is it?
Yeah, no, it's very different. In fact, in the case of the AFMA course, I'll start with that. It's probably almost the most traditional. It runs in terms. So there are 5 terms every year. They run for 6 weeks. And it's a combination of online learning and some online live sessions where we've taken through a workshop of some examples and some work where you'll interact with other people who are participants in the course and potentially participants in those markets. And then there's some assessment pieces at the end. So that's the most traditional of them. And then the Chartered Accountants is also online. It also is done with live sessions. The assessment is a little bit different because it's actually a presentation. So the idea is that people will work through a valuation exercise and then present that as if they are a professional valuer. So that is another way of doing that. In the case of the ACTA course, Certificate in Corporate Treasury, it is actually self-paced completely. There are no exams or anything like that. There's 2 simulations that they have to do. There's exercises throughout the course, but it really is done at your own pace. And there are 14 units in all that they've got to complete, but they are very much done at your own pace. So it's a little bit different to normal study. In the case of AFMA, it's structured in a similar way, but the materials and the way that you're learning is very practical. It's getting you into the theory and what actually happens in markets, and then it asks you questions about how that would work.
Awesome. Now we've got a question wondering whether, like, what support does Macquarie offer for building a career network while studying? You know, or even adding on to that, do people do these credentials while working full time and it's something extra they do?
Absolutely. So in the case of, if I look at the financial market certificate, which is AFMA, in a lot of cases, these are people new to the financial markets. They're working for an employer and the employer says they've got to do it. So they are trying to balance that with full-time work. And so we try to obviously make as much as possible our sessions out of hours, except for the live workshops where they happen during the day, and the intention is to make that part of their work. And given that they need it as a credential to be able to operate in the financial markets, the employers are actually happy with that. It just means that you get to interact with people who are potentially working in that market as well. In the case of ACTA, if you wanted to have some interaction with people, the best bet there is to join ACTA itself and then take part in some of the networking activities that they have. They regularly run sessions for to keep people up to date. They have regular sessions where they encourage particularly junior people and students to consider a career in Treasury. One of those is coming up later in May. And then there's also at least 2 conferences, one called Essential Treasurer, and there's also a conference where you can learn more and network with people who are in that industry. And then chartered accountants run a lot of networking events themselves. So there's opportunities then to connect with people who are involved in the industry.
So it seems like a lot of these credentials are built on setting a really strong foundation for you to continue and grow upon as you kind of continue down your degree.
Yep, it's the start. And in some cases, like ACTA, AFMA, there is the potential to then move on to doing a postgraduate degree and to get some credit for what you've already done.
Awesome. Now, one of the questions we got is, are all these professional development courses free or paid?
They are all paid. So there's a cost to them. They vary. They are either they're set often in consultation with our industry partner, but there is a cost to providing the courses, so we have to charge for them. So sorry, it's not free.
Now, you mentioned before that someone might complete 14 units self-paced or a certain amount of units. Is that a time-based thing or are they subject-based units?
So they are organized into subjects. However, the time period is for each of there's 7 modules for each of the units, and we ask people to do them within a year each. So that should give them enough time to complete.
Awesome. Now, for someone that might want to consider future study, is there a pathway to a master's degree for an AFMA?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the AFMA course itself counts for at least it varies and it depends on your situation, but it could be 1 or 2 units in, say, a Master of Applied Finance, or in the case of ACTA, that's 1 unit of the Master of Applied Finance.
Awesome. Now, another question that we have, and I think a lot of people sometimes wonder if doing these courses are all theory, but the question that we have is, what sort of real life business problems do these professional development courses help professionals solve or get better at solving?
So very much in the case of the Chartered Accountants course, the business valuation course is really focused on preparing people to be expert valuers and to give expert opinions on valuation. So that's a really crucial thing that is needed, in a lot of cases. And there's a wide variety of cases where that's needed. So that's definitely very, very practical. In the case of AFMA, we're really focused on how the markets work, how the products work, and where they're used, and to make sure that you understand the risks involved in them. So, that is intensely practical, and it's a requirement by most of the market that you have that or an equivalent to be able to operate in that market. So it is intensely practical. And in the case of ACTA, it covers all of the things that a corporate treasurer would need to do. What we do find is that from time to time, people who have been working in corporate treasury for some time may have an area that they're not very strong on or they don't know enough about. And so they actually dip in and just do 1 module to build that skill or capability so that they're ready to undertake those roles without needing to get intensive training by the company. They can actually go and do this course and get up to speed with what they need to know.
Now, some people completing these kind of short courses or accreditations, they might face some difficulties or some challenges. What kind of support is available for a student, especially in like an area that might be a little bit more difficult?
So certainly we always ask our students if they're having any difficulties at all, please just contact the lecturer for the particular or the convener for the particular unit. But we also have a support staff, and we have there's options to contact people if you're having difficulties with anything. So we always encourage people to do that. And there are support mechanisms there to help you.
Awesome. Now, if someone here is watching tonight and going, I'm not sure if this is for me, or I'm not sure if I should take that step, what would you say to them? You know, what advice would you give to them?
I think a lot of it depends on where you want to end up. If you want to end up in financial markets, it's a good idea to start the journey of understanding these, getting some grounding in financial markets through potentially the foundations course. In the case of ACTA, dip your toe in, just do some one of the units and understand how it works. If you've got an interest in corporate treasury, it's a good way to understand a little bit more about what's involved in that business. And in the case of the chartered accountants one, it's slightly different because there are threshold requirements to be able to do that. It's very hard to dip your toe into that. But I would suggest if you ever receive a takeover offer or a merger document and there's an expert report with an opinion in there on valuation, that is someone who is the sort of person who would have done that course.
Yeah, okay. And so does that mean that some courses are longer than others, or what's the average length that students are looking at?
So, you can do the certificate in corporate treasury quite quickly if you just complete all the modules very, very quickly. We do find that people like to take a bit of time to do that because it is in their spare time. So that can be, up to a year. AFMA is can be done quite quickly as well, depending on your situation. And we have got people through in about 6 to 9 months before.
Awesome. So these courses seem to be a really good kind of foundation and stuff. Where do you see students kind of ending up after completing these accreditations and short courses?
So in most cases, they're going to be people who are in the industry, but they're also people who are getting into the industry. I think one of the people who started his ACTA course, he was an accountant. He ended up the treasury, the main treasury person for a business. And then he also won Young Treasurer of the Year at ACTA that year. So some people's trajectory can be quite quick. Others can take a little bit of time to get there. And in the case of AFMA, it really is a case of if you want to work in financial markets, particularly in the debt, FX, and energy side, you're going to do it at some stage.
Awesome. Sweet. Now, for someone that might not have known kind of the items that you're talking about, you mentioned corporate treasury quite a bit. What is that for someone that might be kind of unaware of it?
So the corporate treasurer is there to make sure that the business is funded, it has cash, it can pay its bills, and that it's able to manage its risk. So it's a very, very broad role, most often perceived to be an accounting role, but it is much, much more than that, because it is the intersection of the firm with bankers, with financial markets, with investors. It's a pretty broad role and can be quite a big role depending on the company that you're dealing with. So it's a good way to understand more about how a business works. I've always found treasurers to be very curious people who like to understand how things work. It's an opportunity to learn a lot about a business.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Lindsay, for all your insight.
No problem.
If you've had any questions that you would like answered after this, please remember that we're available for more questions. We've also added to the live chat down the bottom the links to AFMA and ACTA, as well as Chartered Accountant Australia and New Zealand. So thank you so much all for joining us tonight here at Macquarie, and we're really excited to welcome you to our university soon. Take care and have a wonderful night.
Thank you.